Hello and welcome to the United Stand. How are we all doing? 3 reasons Jose Mourinho cannot make Manchester United champions of England at the moment, and for me it comes down to well, 3 reasons really, but to be honest with you, I don't know how many Manchester United fans are feeling this morning. If you're not a United fan, you're probably feeling quite happy, but frustration is certainly passing through for shock at yesterday's performance. 4 points from 12 points in the last 4 games is just, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's relegation form, because we're not going to get relegated, but it's absolutely shocking, as many people would admit, and we are miles behind the teams that are going to win the title. I don't think even I thought that till yesterday. But in relation to the reasons that it's going wrong, I think, having thought about it, there are 3 big things for me. Love to get your comments below as to what your thoughts are, and especially for the 8 o'clock show tonight. We'll be live with the Skype show on the United Stand on YouTube, where you can all Skype in and give us your thoughts. But these are my 3 big reasons I think Manchester United are not title contenders, and are not going to win the title this year. And that's painful to say that, but we were level with Manchester City coming off the last international break. We were level with Manchester City, and this time we've given up 8 points. 8 points over 4 games is a disgrace. I repeat that, we were level with them 4 games ago. We're now 8 points off them because we've taken 4 points from 12. It's shocking, absolutely shocking, and it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And I think the first point I'm going to make is probably going to not please many people, but I do stand by it. If Jose Mourinho had an open checkbook, I think we would be challenging for the title. If Jose Mourinho had the players he wanted at Manchester United, we would be challenging for the title. I totally agree that we've spent £300 million under Mourinho, and with £300 million, you know, most club managers would enjoy that. But I don't know what, how. Look, there's an argument there. He spent the same as Pep. I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face, which will be never, because I'll never be a blue. But Pep Guardiola inherited a Manchester City side that has won the title recently. They've won the title recently, and that's, you know, people may want to listen to that, they may not, but they have. And we haven't won the title recently. When Mourinho took over Manchester United, he inherited a team that was I'm trying to figure out where I need to be looking on this. I think I've got my phone the wrong way around. He inherited a team in Mourinho that you know, yes, a lot of money had been spent on all sorts of players, but it wasn't a very good side. Effectively, they hadn't won the title or anything like that, so it's not the same as what Guardiola's inherited, which is a side that had won the title very, very recently. So in that sense, I don't think it really matters what Mourinho inherited at Manchester United. What he bought at United, okay, so he's bought Pogba, who I think Pogba is a fantastic signing for Manchester United. Unfortunately, it's come down to the same old story again, hasn't it? That we lose one player. Basically, Paul Pogba's injury has ended our season, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and that just shows you the quality of the squad that we actually have at United at the moment. We've also Mkhitaryan. I think at this point you've got to call him a flop. Very harsh to say that. I didn't actually think Mkhitaryan was a flop, but you've got to say he is. Disgusted with his performances over the last 3 or 4 weeks, not befitting a Manchester United player. People like Jesse Lingard get a lot of stick, but you know, he may be limited in relation to ability, but he's not limited in relation to effort. Mkhitaryan is. So I'd say Mkhitaryan's a flop. Zlatan, well, you know, we got him for free, and Zlatan. Can't wait for him to come back. Eric Bailly, good signing. And then you look at the signings in the summer. Matic has been phenomenal, and Lukaku, I think, will be good. I will not contemplate the fact that Lukaku will be a flop. I think he will be good, and obviously Lindelof at the moment is looking like a bit of a flop. So in relation to his signings, I don't think Mourinho's signings can be criticised, because no manager will get it 100% right. But in relation to the open checkbook thing, look, Man City and what Pep inherited was people like Aguero, De Bruyne, Silva. He inherited players that had won a title. Mourinho inherited people Sorry, there's a contribution here from Orison. The problem is the squad is just a bunch of self-entitled millennials who lack the mental strength to fight back together. They're more interested in social media than winning titles. Well, I put it on the players yesterday. I thought it was shocking that first 10 minutes after half time. Really did. And I think that is the problem. Look, if Mourinho had an open checkbook, I think he'd get rid of a lot of these players and we would be progressing far better than we are. We're still progressing. I'd argue that with anybody. We're definitely progressing from last year. I don't think we're progressing as quick as we should be, but we are progressing. And as I said, I think that's one of the big problems. He's up against Pep Guardiola, who has an open checkbook from the owners who basically say, what do you need? He said, well, I need to improve my defence. I'm very happy with my attack. Bernardo Silva as a backup's great, but I need to improve my defence. He's done that. Mourinho is still stuck with Chris Smalling, Phil Jones, Ashley Young, Valencia, Fellaini, Lingard. You know, you can keep listing and listing them, but these aren't players that are good enough to win a title, no matter how good their effort levels, they're not. Which brings me on to my second point, that I think you've always got to look. Mourinho's the manager, and obviously I think he's the right manager, but you've got to also look at potential areas that he could have done things better. And I do think in relation to yesterday and the last 12 months, where he's really struggling is the that's it, I did the wrong way round, that's why I'm not comfortable with it. I think the area that Mourinho needs to, well, he doesn't need to do anything, he's very well paid and he's a very good manager, but the area that for me Mourinho struggles with, and the second reason we're not going to win the title this year, is this confusion around what he's managing at Manchester United and what he's used to. And I'll define that even more. It's like a Chelsea fan on one of the fan cams yesterday said, look, Mourinho would never approach this game like he did with United. With Chelsea, he would have been way more defensive. That's what he does. Obviously there's this United way of playing, which is important, and I think he's battling with that. I think sometimes he's like, I've got to do that, but his history and success as a manager points him more towards people like effort levels. So people like Phil Jones, Jesse Lingard, Marouane Fellaini, they play a lot under him because that's the Mourinho way. Mourinho values effort and desire over ability, and I think the best example of that is probably Marcus Rashford, a player I think's got a fantastic future, but a player who was very, very poor yesterday. And Anthony Martial yet again sits on the bench. I think if you speak to most people in England, they would tell you that Anthony Martial, and I would agree, is Manchester United's best flair player, but he doesn't start for Manchester United. Now, whatever you think about Wenger, Klopp, Guardiola, there is no way in a million years they wouldn't be picking Mane, they wouldn't be picking Aguero, they wouldn't be picking Sanchez. We're not picking Martial, and that's Jose Mourinho's sort of struggle at the moment. I think sometimes he realises he's got to go with those better players, but he'll also always default back to effort level players like your Fellaini's, like your Phil Jones, who ultimately not good enough in a league like this. Ross made a really good point yesterday on the watch along, saying I think last year or the year before we might be a real title contender, because you look at Leicester and Chelsea, but they weren't that good. The problem this year is that you know, Guardiola's had a season at Manchester City to sort out a lot of the issues and build on a team that has recently won the title with an open checkbook, and there's not going to be much room for error. United is still a long way off, and as I said, the Paul Pogba injury has effectively killed us, you know, absolutely killed us in the space of what, 4 games. We were unable to grind out better than 4 points in 4 games, which is not good enough. The third thing, and again, I'll leave this open to you lot to interpret, but the third thing for me is the we lack leadership. We totally and utterly lack leadership in that team. Whatever you think about Antonio Valencia, I don't think he had a very good game against Chelsea, to be totally honest with you, and his understanding of and grasp of English is not the best. It's not the best, but the team lacks leadership. Matic has only been there 5 minutes. Smalling, Jones and Bay I think have done very well, but who's the leader? Ashley Young is a 32-year-old who, you know, we're celebrating getting called up for England. Woohoo! Valencia has been very, very consistent, but I don't see him as a captain. Herrera's not a captain, and obviously neither's Rashford, neither's Lukaku. we desperately missed the likes of, well, I mean, realistically, is Pogba a captain? I think he's symbolic of the team and he drives the team forward, but there's massive problems with that the United side. And I think the sad thing for me this morning waking up is that maybe I thought we were going to win the title just because Mourinho always wins the title in the first 2 years at a club. But look, I'm not giving up the title because 8 points in at the start of November is definitely achievable, and a couple of signings in January, and that's a big if. You know, we're talking about, oh, we need to get Zlatan and Pogba back, and then we need to make a couple of signings in January. Do you trust this board to actually go and spend money in January? They couldn't even do it in the summer. So I didn't, you know, I know they bought some players, but again, I think there's many reasons to be frustrated with Mourinho, and if people want to say Mourinho out, I think that's very premature. But one thing I will defend him on is this whole naive argument that, oh, he's had the money, he's had £300 million. I cannot overemphasise the point enough that he's starting from scratch. He's starting, you know, he's not coming to a club that's got Aguero, Silva, De Bruyne, Premier League winners. He's coming into a club that's got 4 years of bottling weak mentality players, or players coming towards the end of their career. There's no Premier League title winner in that side, really. I mean, Juan Mata's obviously a very experienced player, but this is a Manchester United club on its knees that he's come into, and he's effectively bought a handful of players, and I think he needs a handful more of players. I agree. I think Mourinho needs to bring a couple of more leaders into the team, and maybe he has those leaders. They just need to develop more. I'm talking about people like Eric Bailly, but also I think he needs to establish what he wants from his Manchester United career. Is he going to default to the Mourinho that's been successful and go far more defensive, or is he going to totally embrace what many Manchester United fans want? I think the time has come now where we failed in October. I think this whole, oh yeah, it's nice to have Anthony Martial coming on for the last 20 minutes of a game because, you know, he's deadly off the bench. Well, we're not in a comfortable position. You know, if you're Manchester City, you more or less can get away with that at the moment because you're blowing everybody else away, and then you bring Martial on for the last 20 minutes. This needs to stop now. We are not blowing teams away. We've taken 4 points from 12 games. Put your best player on the pitch, and our best player in relation to goals and ability is Martial. He needs to start games, and that's where Mourinho needs to sort it out. In relation to Manchester City, a lot of people are saying, well, why aren't you giving Manchester City any credit? Look, Manchester City are obviously doing very well at the moment. I think Manchester City at the moment probably look like they will win the title, but he has got a team that has won the title in the last 3 years. They're, you know, very experienced, very good Premier League players. He's also then had 2 seasons of an open checkbook to add to that. I think if Guardiola didn't win the title in the first 2 years, he'd be a massive failure. I think Mourinho winning the title in the first 2 years, many of us predicted it, but the enormity of the job. Look, he's got massive problems when he takes his team to his old club. He doesn't want to lose. They do okay for 45 minutes, but then they come out after half time and just totally down tools and drop the ball. He's got massive problems with that, and I think Mourinho puts so much emphasis on effort, and he needs to put emphasis on ability now, because effort can take you so far, and effort didn't help us yesterday. And Manchester United should be always more than effort. Effort's, you know, in a Manchester United shirt, on a Manchester United contract, it should be, if you don't put effort in there, we'll kick you out of the club and not pay you wages, because effort at Manchester United should not be something we value. It should be it should be taken for granted. It's not. I'm fed up of, oh, effort. I mean, let's be honest, Fellaini was awful yesterday, but I'm not going to give him any criticism, because through effort, and like, you know, Mourinho comes out in a post-match press conference and basically bigs up Fellaini publicly because of effort. You know, I get where he's coming from, but effort's like, I'm fed up of listening about effort. We're Manchester United, we're not Stoke. We shouldn't be coming out at the end of games going, well, we lost, but we put a lot of effort in. Since when has Manchester United been about effort levels? And yeah, Fellaini got himself back after 1 day of training, but he also nearly gave 2 goals away and was atrocious. So, you know, that's the flip side if you want to be harsh. And I don't want to be harsh on Fellaini, because by the sounds of it, he got himself back when we haven't got anybody else. But the reality is we have got other players as well. We've got you played Twansibi as a centre defensive midfielder 3 times last season, twice at the Emirates and at White Hart Lane. So why can't you do it now? Why is Twansibi suddenly not good enough now? Does he not fit into the criteria of being an experienced effort player? I mean, he's a young player who's going to give a lot of effort, and he would at least excite at least, you know, if we'd lost yesterday with Twansibi in the midfield, I know for a fact most Manchester United fans would have been far more positive than they are now. I think at the moment we're all just very confused as to why yet another good start to a season has just capitulated. I put it on the players, I put it on the squad not being good enough, but also there has to be some acceptance. And for me, the three big reasons Manchester United won't win the title this year is, one, because Mourinho hasn't had the full backing and hasn't got an open checkbook. Two, there are no leaders in that team. Paul Pogba gets injured and our title credentials or challenge just falls away because of one player, which is never good enough. And three, Mourinho is battling with old Mourinho, which is all about effort levels and defensive play, and Manchester United, which is not about defensive play, it's about attack. And the most symbolic thing about that is this nonsense of Martial being a cameo in the last 20 minutes has to stop. We're not good enough to have a cameo in Martial. He's our best attacking player. He's got to start. And you know, I like Rashford, but we were talking about it in the watch along yesterday, and the reason Rashford starts over Martial is because he runs around a little bit more quicker. But he was like a plastic bag in the wind yesterday, just getting blown over all over the place. And as for this whole Rashford starts because he's got better delivery, his crossing was diabolical, his free kicks were awful. I mean, Manchester United's creativity is just non-existent at the moment. That's why we're struggling to win games. I mean, you've got Mkhitaryan, who's just useless. You've got nobody who can put a cross into the box. And yes, people can be critical of Romelu Lukaku, but when he's getting zero chances, what is he supposed to do? Anyway, it's more open for you. You give us your thoughts. That's my three reasons Manchester United will not be winning the title this year, and probably not next year unless they solve those problems, because they are sort of major problems. But we're live again at 8 o'clock with the Skype show for you lot to call in. Get comments in below. I will be reading throughout the day and we'll bring some of those points up. Thanks everyone for watching. Drop a like on the video and I'll speak to you all very soon.